She texted her ex at midnight, but a billionaire answered, and her life was never the same. She was heartbroken, alone, and holding on to a love that had already let her go. At midnight, with tears on her pillow and hope running out, she did something she swore she'd never do again. She texted her ex, but the reply she got wasn't from him. It was from a stranger, a billionaire, and from that moment on, nothing in her life, or his, would ever be the same. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. It was 12:03 a.m. when Ava's fingers hovered over her cracked phone screen, heart pounding louder than the rain tapping on her apartment window. She stared at the contact name glowing in the dark. Liam. Don't text again. But heartbreak has no curfew, and sometimes midnight feels lonelier than the rest of the day combined. So with shaking hands and wet cheeks, Ava typed 6 words she promised herself she'd never send. Do you ever miss me too? She hit send and curled into herself, regret already gnawing at her chest. It had been 8 months since Liam walked out, and she'd spent every one of those months pretending she was okay, to her friends, to her boss at the bookstore, and worst of all, to herself. She didn't expect a reply. She didn't even want one, really. This was a message to the past, a whisper into a void. Except, someone answered. 1:07 a.m. I do, but I'm not who you think I am. Ava blinked, sat up. Her eyes scanned the screen again, confused. Was this some twisted prank? Had Liam changed his number? 1:09 a.m. You reached me by mistake, but your message, it felt real. Are you okay? Her thumbs hovered, hesitating. Common sense screamed to block the number and forget this ever happened, but the message didn't sound cruel. It felt human, and she hadn't had a real conversation in weeks. She typed slowly. I didn't mean to bother you. I was having a moment. Sorry. The typing dots appeared right away. It's okay. Midnight confessions are often the truest ones. That sentence did something strange to her heart. She exhaled shakily. Whoever this was, he wasn't mocking her. He was listening. Who is this? She asked. My name's Elias, and if I'm honest, I haven't slept well in months either. The next morning, Ava expected to wake up regretting everything. But instead, she stared at her phone, hoping he would text again. She hadn't smiled like that in a while. At the bookstore, things moved slowly. Same regulars, same coffee orders, same overhead jazz. Her manager, Suki, noticed the difference right away. You look suspiciously less dead inside, Suki teased, sliding a stack of new releases onto the counter. Did your ex finally apologize for being human garbage? Ava laughed. No, I texted his old number and ended up talking to a stranger. Suki raised an eyebrow. That sounds like the beginning of a horror story. I thought so too, but he was kind. Suki leaned on the counter. Girl, be careful. The last time you followed your heart, it ran straight into a dumpster fire. I know, Ava said quietly, but this felt different. He didn't ask for anything. He just listened. Suki softened. Then maybe you needed to be heard. That night the messages continued. Tell me something true about you, Elias texted. Ava thought for a moment. I'm afraid I'm going to live a small life, that I'll just disappear into the background and no one will notice. She almost deleted the message, but then she hit send. A minute passed, then another, and then... I've built an empire, Ava, but I still wake up scared. I'll lose everything and no one will care. So maybe it's not about size. Maybe it's about who's paying attention. Her breath caught. What kind of empire? Let's just say, I have more money than I know what to do with. But none of it has ever bought me what I really wanted. She blinked. Which is? Peace. Someone to talk to without pretending. A night without pretending I'm invincible. Ava Googled his number. Nothing. No name, no photos, no scandals, just silence. She thought he was lying, that this was just a fantasy from some guy in a basement with good grammar. But then one evening, a package showed up at her apartment door. No return address, just a small, unmarked box. Inside was a hardcover first edition of Pride and Prejudice, a book she had once mentioned in passing during their text exchange. There was a note tucked inside. "You told me you've never held something rare. Now you have. E." She gripped the book like it might vanish. The leather was smooth, the pages yellowed with time, and it smelled like history. It was real, which meant he was real. That night, their messages turned into a phone call. Ava almost didn't answer when the screen lit up, but curiosity won. His voice was low, calm, a little tired, a little guarded, but kind. They talked for nearly 2 hours, about nothing and everything. He didn't tell her his last name, she didn't ask. But when he laughed at one of her dumb jokes, something fluttered in her chest. And when she said goodnight, she didn't feel alone. The weeks passed like a quiet miracle. Elias became her secret, her midnight voice, her sanity. They never spoke during the day, only after the world went quiet. But one evening, everything changed. She finally asked the question that had been burning at her lips. "Why me? Why keep texting a stranger?" The line was quiet. Then Elias said something that sent chills down her spine. "Because I knew your message wasn't meant for me, but it felt like it was." Ava didn't know what to say. Her heart thudded loudly in her ears. But before she could speak, he added, "And because the night I got your text, I was standing on a ledge." Ava froze. Silence filled the line, heavy and sharp like a breath held too long. She barely whispered, "You were standing on a rooftop?" Elias didn't hesitate. "Yes." The word landed like a stone. No dramatic pause, no emotion even, just truth. "Why?" she asked, voice trembling. A deep inhale. "Because I was tired of pretending." He paused. "I have everything I thought I wanted. The cars, the house on the hill, a company people worship, but I haven't felt real joy in years. And that night, I just wanted silence." Ava swallowed hard. The room around her felt smaller. And all it took was one accidental message to pull someone back from the edge. "Why didn't you go through with it?" she asked. Another pause. Then he said something she'd never forget. "Because your message made me feel seen. It was raw, unfiltered. Someone out there hurt like I did, and wasn't hiding it. I didn't want to be alone with my silence anymore." Ava blinked, heart hammering. "I didn't mean to save anyone." "You didn't save me? You reminded me I could save myself." Neither of them spoke for a while after that, but the silence no longer felt empty. The next day, Ava couldn't focus. Books piled up at the register. Her coworker dropped a box of bookmarks. Customers came and went, but her mind stayed locked on Elias. She kept replaying his voice, his honesty, the fragility behind his words. It was hard to believe. A billionaire on a rooftop, seconds away from disappearing forever, rescued by a wrong number. And now, texting her every night. It felt impossible, it felt true. That night, Elias messaged her first. "Hey, stranger. Still feel like talking?" "Always," she typed. "I couldn't stop thinking about you." "I was hoping you'd say that." They didn't talk about the ledge again that night. Instead, they talked about Ava's dreams, her writing, her fear of being invisible. "When I was a kid," she said, "I used to imagine someone out there was reading my mind, like a secret audience. It made me feel less alone." "And now?" Elias asked. "Now I just hope someone out there sees me, really sees me, not as a background character." There was a pause. "I see you, Ava." 4 words, but they hit like thunder. Days turned into weeks, and texting turned into late-night calls, deep ones, long ones, the kind that dig into your soul and plant something new. Ava found herself smiling more, laughing at things again. Her friends noticed. Even Suki started giving her fewer pity coffees, but she still didn't know who Elias truly was. One night, she asked, "Why don't you ever tell me your last name?" "Because once you know it," Elias said, "everything changes." "Try me." Another pause. Then, "If I tell you, promise you'll still talk to me tomorrow?" "Only if you promise you'll still be you." Silence. And then he sent a photo. It was blurry, taken in low light, but it was him. Dark eyes, sharp jawline, faint smile. And Ava knew that face. She dropped her phone. Elias Reed, owner of Reed Technologies, billionaire, investor, philanthropist. A man whose face was on magazine covers and finance articles worldwide. She stared at the screen like it might bite her. And then her phone buzzed again. "I wanted you to know me before you knew me." Does that make sense? It did. Too much. He wasn't hiding who he was. He just didn't want that version of himself to be the one she talked to every night. And Ava didn't know whether to feel honored or terrified. Later that night, her phone rang. She picked up on the first ring. "Are you mad?" he asked carefully. Ava laughed, not bitterly, but with disbelief. "You're a billionaire, Elias. You could have had anyone." "That's the thing," he said. "I've had everyone. Parties full of people who smile for the wrong reasons. Women who love the spotlight, not the shadows. But you met me in the dark." Tears stung her eyes. "And you didn't run," he added. "You stayed." Ava couldn't speak, because part of her wanted to run now, and the other part wanted to fall even harder. 2 days later, a car pulled up outside the bookstore, a black SUV with tinted windows. Quiet, polished, out of place. Suki nudged Ava. "That car's been sitting there for 20 minutes. It's either the FBI or a very rich stalker." Ava laughed nervously. "I doubt it." Her phone buzzed. "I'm outside. I'd like to finally meet you. If you're ready." Her heart dropped to her stomach. He's here. Elias is here. She stared out the window. The passenger door opened, and there he was. No bodyguards, no suits, just jeans, a simple jacket, and a quiet presence that drew every eye without even trying. He looked at her through the glass. Waiting. Ava couldn't move. Her feet stayed planted behind the bookstore window, heart racing like she'd just sprinted a marathon. There he was, Elias Reed, not on a screen, not through a phone, but here, in real life, standing just outside her world, waiting. And he wasn't going anywhere. Suki leaned over the counter and whispered, "That's him, isn't it?" Ava nodded slowly. "Yeah." Suki didn't blink. "Girl, go." Ava stepped outside. The air felt colder than usual, or maybe that was her nerves. She walked slowly toward him, eyes locked with his. He smiled, not the charming billionaire photo op kind. It was smaller, softer, honest. "Hi," he said, hands in his pockets. Ava stopped a few feet away. "You're real." Elias tilted his head, his smile growing just a little. "So are you. Better than I imagined, honestly." She laughed once, a short, nervous breath. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," he said gently. "Let's just be people for a minute. People for no titles, no texts, just us." They stood like that, quietly, letting the weight of all their late-night conversations settle into real air. No screens, no filters, just two people who found each other by accident and stayed. They sat at a small cafe across the street, far from the glass towers and luxury restaurants Elias was used to, but he didn't seem to mind. "You're nothing like I expected," Ava said after their drinks arrived. "What were you expecting?" "I don't know. Designer shoes, sunglasses at night, entourage of assistants." Elias laughed. "I have all that, just not today." He leaned in slightly. I wanted you to see the version of me I like best, the one I usually keep hidden. Ava studied him. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to be anyone. That was impressive. It's weird, she admitted. You don't feel famous right now. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me in months. They talked for over an hour about books, music, the awkwardness of their first text exchange. Every time Ava laughed, Elias looked at her like she was something rare. But underneath the warmth, something still lingered in her chest. Fear. Because now that she knew who he was, the gap between their lives felt bigger than ever. Later that night, Ava stared at her phone, unsure if she should text him. She didn't have to wait long. "Still thinking about you," he wrote. "Me too," she replied. "Today didn't feel real. It was the most real day I've had in years." Her heart flipped. Then another message came through. "I want to see you again. Tomorrow?" Ava's fingers froze above the keyboard. She wanted to say yes. Every part of her did. But a whisper in her head asked, what happens when this stops being exciting, when he remembers who he is, and who you're not? Still, she typed, "Okay, but no helicopters or yachts? Just bring yourself." "Deal. I'll leave the private jet at home, too." She laughed, even though she was alone. The next evening, he picked her up in a regular car. No driver, no flash. Just Elias, looking quietly out of place in her ordinary world. He took her to an old jazz bar. Dim lights, wood floors, candles on each table. It wasn't expensive, but it was thoughtful. And she felt something strange. Safe. They sat in a booth, talking through the entire set, about fears, failures, the things they never told anyone. "Why don't you date?" Ava asked halfway through dessert. Elias looked down at his glass. "Because people see what they want from me, not who I am." "And what do you want?" He looked at her for a long moment. "Someone who doesn't need me to be a fantasy." He paused. "Someone who sees me and stays anyway." Ava's throat tightened, because she knew what it felt like to be unseen, to be loved for the idea of who you were, not the truth. "I don't need perfect," she said. "I need real." Their hands touched, not planned, not forced, just instinct. And for the first time it felt like maybe they had found something neither of them believed existed anymore. But happiness doesn't come without shadows. 2 days later, Ava's world flipped. She opened her phone that morning and found dozens of missed calls, messages, notifications. Her heart sank. The texts were from friends, her old classmates, even her landlord, and every single one had the same link. Local bookstore girl seen with tech billionaire Elias Reed. Who is she? Her photo, sitting at the jazz bar, laughing with Elias, was plastered on gossip sites, Twitter, blogs. People she didn't even know were commenting on her clothes, her hair, her worth. Gold digger. He can do better. She planned this. Watch. Ava dropped the phone. Her privacy was gone. And worse, her heart felt like it was splitting open, because she had no idea how he would react. Would he regret it? Would he disappear? Just as she reached for her phone to call him, it buzzed. It was Elias. "I saw it. I'm so sorry." "This was a mistake," she typed back, panic setting in. "Your world and mine. They don't mix." The typing dots appeared, and then vanished. Appeared again. Vanished. Finally. "Please don't disappear on me now." Ava didn't leave her apartment for 2 days. The curtains stayed shut. Her phone stayed on silent. And her heartbeat, steady only days ago, now lived in a state of panic. Strangers were tearing her apart online, dissecting her job, her clothes, her past relationships. Someone even found her old high school photos. Another posted a screenshot of her college debt. She wasn't Ava anymore. She was the girl dating the billionaire. Her identity had been hijacked. She stared at the message Elias had sent. Please don't disappear on me now." She hadn't replied, not because she was angry, but because she was scared. On the third night, someone knocked on her door. She froze. Then again, 3 soft knocks. "Ava," a voice called. Calm, familiar. "Elias." She hesitated. Her place was a mess. She was a mess, and a part of her didn't want him to see her like this, unfiltered, undone, afraid. But wasn't that the version of herself he said he wanted? She opened the door. He stood there in a hoodie and jeans, holding 2 bags of takeout and a nervous smile. "I brought Thai food, and I swear, no one followed me." Ava just looked at him, and then she broke. Tears she didn't know she'd been holding back spilled down her cheeks. Her knees buckled a little. Elias dropped the bags and caught her. He didn't say a word, just held her in the doorway while the storm inside her finally cracked open. Later they sat on the floor, food forgotten, the city lights spilling through the window. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'm not built for that world." "Neither am I," Elias said quietly. She looked at him. "But you live in it. That doesn't mean it doesn't eat me alive sometimes." He paused. "I've lost friends, relationships, privacy. I get judged before I even open my mouth. People assume I'm cold, calculated, or too perfect to feel anything. But I do." He looked straight at her, "Especially when it comes to you." Ava blinked. "But I'm nobody." He smiled sadly. "You're not nobody. You're the one person who saw me before the headlines. And you didn't care about the empire. You cared about the silence behind it." A long moment passed. "So what now?" she asked. Elias took her hand gently. "Now, we figure it out. Together, if you'll let me." The days that followed weren't easy. Paparazzi started camping outside the bookstore. Customers came in just to gawk at Ava. She tried to keep her head down, but whispers followed her like shadows. Suki stood guard as best she could. "You should sue someone," she muttered one afternoon, slamming a tabloid on the counter. "This is garbage journalism. Look at this headline. From books to billionaires, the Ava twist. Like you're some plot twist in his story." Ava sighed. "Maybe I am." Suki leaned in, lowering her voice. "No, you're the reason his story changed." One night, Elias picked her up and drove an hour outside the city. No cameras, no lights, just open fields and a wide sky full of stars. They sat on the hood of his car, the air crisp, their shoulders touching. "What are we doing here?" she asked. "I wanted to give you a night with no noise, no headlines. Just this." He looked up. "My favorite place to breathe?" Ava smiled softly. "You're full of surprises." "So are you." He paused. "I never expected a wrong number to change everything." She turned to him, heart thudding. "Elias," but he wasn't smiling now. He was looking at her like she was the one miracle he hadn't earned. "Ava, I need to tell you something." Her stomach turned. "What?" He looked down. "I made a mistake. Before I met you. Before that message. And it might come back to hurt you." Her chest tightened. "What kind of mistake?" He hesitated, struggled for words, that calm billionaire armor cracking. "There's someone I dated, and she knows how to make stories spin. If she finds out about you, she'll go after you." Ava felt the weight of those words settle in her spine. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I didn't know it would get this far. I didn't expect to feel this far." She pulled away slightly. "So, I'm what? Just a target now?" "No, you're not a target. You're the person I'm trying to protect." "By hiding the truth?" The silence grew thick between them. Elias ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I was trying to fix it before it touched you. I didn't want to lose you over something that happened before I even knew you existed." Ava stared up at the stars. They didn't look so peaceful anymore. The next morning, it happened. A headline hit every platform. "Billionaire Elias Reid moves on. New girl in spotlight as ex speaks out." There was a photo of Elias with his ex from months ago, posed, happy, fake. Then came the quote, from her. "I wish him the best, but I know what he's capable of. She should too." And just like that, Ava's name was everywhere again. But this time, it wasn't just curiosity. It was judgment, rumors, speculation, interviews, people comparing photos of her and the ex, analyzing who was better. Ava didn't cry. She just stared at her screen, numb, until her phone rang. It was Elias. She let it ring, and ring, and ring. Then finally, she picked up. "Tell me why I shouldn't walk away right now." His voice broke. "Because I love you." Ava stood in her apartment, holding the phone like it was burning her hand. "Because I love you." The words hung in the air like smoke. Beautiful, dangerous, hard to breathe through. She closed her eyes. "Elias," he spoke first. "I know, it's fast, it's messy, but I've never been more certain about anything. I should have told you sooner. I should have warned you about my past. You didn't trust me," she cut in. Her voice wasn't angry, it was tired. "I was trying to protect you. But I never asked for protection, Elias. I asked for honesty." Silence. Ava walked to the window, watching headlights blur down the street. Her reflection stared back, pale, tired, unsure. "I want to believe you," she said softly. "But I don't know if love is enough to survive this." He didn't argue. He just whispered, "I'll prove that it is." And then the line went dead. The next week was quiet. No texts, no calls. Elias disappeared from the headlines like someone had flipped a switch. No new photos, no new statements. But Ava kept checking anyway, even when she told herself not to. Suki did her best to keep her distracted. "I swear if I see one more article about your love triangle, I'm going to start flipping tables," she muttered while unpacking a shipment of books. Ava cracked a small smile. "You'd go viral too." Suki smirked. "Might be worth it." She paused, then asked gently, "Do you miss him?" Ava's smile faded. "Every day." That Friday the bookstore got quiet near closing time. Just Ava and a few lingering customers. Then the bell above the door rang. She looked up and froze. Elias. He was wearing the same jacket from their first night out. No entourage, no flash, just him. And in his hands, a single notebook, leather-bound, worn. He walked slowly toward her, nerves flickering behind his eyes. "Can I talk to you?" he asked, voice low. She nodded once, then led him to the back reading nook, the place where she always felt safest. They sat across from each other. He placed the notebook on the table between them. "What's this?" "My past." He looked her in the eyes. "Everything I've ever tried to hide from the world. It's yours to read. No edits, no PR, just truth." Ava stared at it. The weight of it. The risk of it. "Why now?" "Because I realized something." He leaned in. "You don't get to ask someone to love you without showing them who you really are. The good and the broken." Her throat tightened. "And you're okay with being vulnerable?" "Only if it's with you." That night, she sat in bed and opened the notebook. It wasn't just writing. It was pain, raw and unfiltered. Memories from his childhood. Loneliness, betrayal, the pressure of inheriting a business too young, the cost of building a billion-dollar brand at the expense of his happiness. There were pages about the ex too. How the relationship had started with sparks and ended in manipulation. How the media turned their breakup into a weapon. How ashamed he was of the silence he kept after. By the time Ava turned the last page, she was crying. Because he wasn't a perfect man. He was a real one. She didn't sleep that night. She didn't need to. At 6:32 a.m., she texted him. "I finished it." The reply came instantly. "And? You weren't wrong. It was messy, but it was also honest and brave. Come over." He showed up 20 minutes later. She opened the door, didn't say a word, just pulled him into the warmest, quietest hug she could. Elias breathed her in like she was the first clean air he'd had in weeks. Then she pulled back and whispered, "You said you loved me. Say it again." He looked into her eyes. "I love you." And this time, she believed it. "I love you too." They decided to take it slow. No interviews, no public appearances, just the two of them, learning how to exist in the same world at the same time. Elias started coming by the bookstore after hours. They'd drink tea on the floor, read poetry, talk about everything and nothing. He never rushed her, and she never asked him to hide. Their rhythm was quiet, but it was theirs. Until one evening a letter arrived at her apartment. No return address. Inside was a photo. Her and Elias, laughing, in her apartment. It was taken through the window. There was a note. "You really think this story ends happy?" No signature. Ava's hands trembled. The past wasn't done with them yet. The photo sat on Ava's kitchen table like a loaded gun. She stared at it, heart pounding, unable to breathe. The note wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no insults, just a simple sentence, scrawled in ink that seemed colder than the words themselves. "You really think this story ends happy?" There was no name, no address. But Ava knew. Deep down, she knew who had sent it. And Elias. He knew too. He arrived 20 minutes later, rushing into her apartment with eyes burning and fists clenched. Ava handed him the photo and the note without saying a word. He read them slowly, jaw tightening. "It's her," he said, voice low. "Madeline." Ava crossed her arms. "What does she want?" "Control," Elias replied, setting the paper down. "That's what she always wanted, even when we were together." He paced the room like a man trying not to explode. "She used to threaten people behind closed doors, never direct, always subtle. She plays the long game. But why now?" Elias looked at her, and this time there was guilt in his eyes. "Because I told her last year I was done, that I wanted a clean break. I cut her out of every deal, every meeting, every privilege. I blocked her number. I told the board to do the same. And she warned me." He swallowed hard. She said, "You'll fall in love with someone. And when you do, I'll be there to ruin it." Ava felt a chill crawl down her spine. "So what do we do?" she asked. Elias looked at her, unwavering. "We don't run." But standing still didn't mean standing alone. The next morning, Elias arranged a private meeting with his legal team. Ava sat in the back of the sleek conference room, out of place in her cardigan and boots among lawyers in designer suits. They spoke in codes and contracts, non-disclosures and security measures. But Ava wasn't listening to the words. She was watching him. Elias sat at the head of the table like a man used to power. But this time, he used it for her, to protect her. Not to dominate the room, but to make it safe. After the meeting, he turned to her. "I've tightened everything, hired personal security for the building. I won't let her near you." Ava shook her head slowly. This isn't your fault." Elias smiled faintly. "No, but you're my heart now, and I guard what matters." Still, the anxiety grew. Every knock at the door made Ava flinch. Every stranger outside the bookstore made her stomach twist. And Madeline's voice, though never heard, lingered in Ava's mind. She didn't care about the money or the drama. What terrified her most was the feeling of being watched. One evening, she returned home and found another envelope. Inside, no photo this time, just a sentence. "He told me the same things he tells you." Ava sat down slowly. Her hands trembled, but her heart cracked, because the seed of doubt had been planted, and now it was growing. That night, she didn't text Elias back. He called, twice. She let it ring. By midnight, she was sitting in the dark, knees pulled to her chest when the buzzer rang. She knew it was him. She didn't move. A minute later, gentle knocking. Then his voice, soft, careful. "Ava, please, let me in." She opened the door. His face fell the moment he saw hers. What happened? She held up the second note. He read it, took a deep breath, and then did something he'd never done before. He dropped to the floor, knees bent, and said, "Then ask me. Whatever you need to ask. I won't hide. I won't spin it. Ask me." Ava blinked back tears. "Did you ever say those words to her?" Elias met her eyes. Yes. Her heart broke again, but he wasn't finished. "But not the way I've said them to you." She didn't move. "When I said them to her, I was trying to fix something broken. With you, I was finally speaking truth." He took her hand. Gently. "You are not a replacement. You are not a rebound. You are the first thing in my life that feels real. And if you don't believe me, I'll spend every day showing you." Ava couldn't speak, because deep down she knew it was true. The fear wasn't about the past. It was about trusting the present enough to believe in the future. The next day she called a lawyer. She didn't want revenge. She wanted peace. She filed a cease and desist against Madeline. With Elias's team supporting her, she documented everything, every note, every message. And then she went back to work. She opened the bookstore like normal, helped a kid find his first fantasy novel, shared a laugh with Suki over spilled coffee. It was a quiet rebellion, choosing to live when someone else wanted her to hide. And that night, Elias showed up at closing time with 2 cups of tea and a look she hadn't seen before, a look of peace. "You really came through hell for me," she whispered. "No," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We walked through it together." But one final test remained. Elias had a public charity gala in 2 days. The whole city would be watching. Cameras, lights, reporters. And for the first time, he wanted her there, not behind the scenes, not hidden, by his side. "Only if you're ready," he said. Ava stared at the invite, her name printed neatly next to his. It was more than an invitation. It was a choice. The night of the gala, the cameras flashed wildly. Elias stepped onto the red carpet in his classic black suit, but all eyes shifted when Ava emerged beside him. Graceful, simple, strong. She didn't smile for the headlines. She smiled at him. And when a reporter shouted, "Who is she, Elias?" he paused, turned toward the cameras, and said clearly, "She's the woman I love." No spin, no press release, just truth, under the lights. The night of the gala felt like something out of a dream, not because of the glittering lights or the chandelier reflections on the marble floors, or the endless rows of people dressed like royalty, but because somehow in all that noise, Ava felt calm, not invisible, not out of place, just seen. And the only reason? Elias never let go of her hand. After the red carpet, the event moved inside. Speeches were made, glasses clinked, the room hummed with carefully rehearsed charm, but Ava barely noticed any of it. She was focused on the way Elias whispered jokes only she could hear, the way his eyes scanned the room not for press, but for her reactions. This wasn't his world anymore. It was theirs. Near the end of the night, a woman approached them. Late 30s, hair perfect, smile even more perfect, the kind of perfect that didn't feel kind. Madeline. "Elias," she said, tilting her head. "Long time." He straightened, subtle but protective. "Madeline!" Her eyes flicked to Ava, slow and deliberate. "So, you must be her." Ava met her gaze, steady. "I am." A second of silence stretched between them. Then Madeline smiled, tight, insincere. "Hope you're enjoying the spotlight. Careful, though. It burns." Before Elias could speak, Ava stepped forward. "I'm not here for the lights." She didn't blink. "I'm here for him." And with that, she gently took Elias's hand again and walked away. Calm, graceful, unshaken. Madeline didn't follow. She didn't need to. Because that moment wasn't about confrontation. It was about closure. Back at the apartment that night, Ava kicked off her shoes and sighed into the couch cushions. "I survived," she laughed. "I actually survived that." Elias poured 2 glasses of wine. "You didn't just survive it, you owned it." He handed her a glass and sat beside her. "I was proud of you tonight." She looked at him. "I was proud of us." He smiled, a soft, tired kind of smile, the kind you give when the storm has finally passed. Then his face grew more serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "Elias." He opened it. Not a ring, a key. Simple. Silver. Warm in his palm. "To the lake house," he said. "It's quiet. Private. Nothing but trees, books, and peace. No press. No threats. Just us. I want you to have a place that's ours." She stared at it, heart aching in the best possible way. "This is, a lot." "So is love," he said softly. "But I'm not asking you to move in. Or marry me. Not yet. I'm just asking you to let this story keep going." Ava took the key, pressed it to her chest. "Then let's write the next chapter slowly." He nodded. "As slowly as you need." Weeks passed. Quietly, peacefully. No more letters, no more headlines, just late-night texts again. But now from across the couch instead of across the city. Elias still ran an empire. Ava still worked at the bookstore, by choice, not necessity. And together they built something rare. A love not defined by noise, but by the way they chose each other every day. One crisp Saturday morning they drove to the lake house. It wasn't grand, it wasn't modern, but it was safe. And for the first time in a long, long time, Ava felt something deep in her bones. Home. Elias stood behind her, arms wrapped around her waist as they looked out at the water. "You ever think about how this all started?" he asked. She nodded. "One wrong text," he chuckled. "Or maybe, one right one." She turned to face him. "Do you ever miss who you used to be?" He thought for a moment, then said quietly, "No, because I never really was him." Ava smiled. "And who are you now?" He leaned in, forehead to hers. "Yours." 1 year later, the lake house had become a second heart, a place for late-night dance parties in the kitchen, morning coffee on the dock, dog-eared novels scattered across the couch. Quiet, joy, love. Elias never stopped running his company, but he'd changed how he ran it. Less focus on image, more focus on impact. Ava started writing again. Her first short story was published under a pen name. It was about a girl who sent a message into the void and found something she never expected: herself, the ending, and the beginning. They didn't need a fairy tale. What they had was better. Something real, flawed, messy, honest. And when people asked how they met, they always smiled and said, "Wrong number." But in truth, it was exactly the number both of them needed. The end. Now it's your turn. Have you ever sent a message you didn't expect to change your life, but it did? Or maybe, have you ever received one that made you feel seen again? Drop it in the comments. Someone out there might need to read your story today.